Hello friend, welcome back. In our previous video, I have already discussed about that things with you. That is a router link, how can put that router link. We successfully did that work. So now in this video, I want to discuss about how can add the parameter into your route. Like in Laravel, when we create some of the edit page and also the delete page, then we define some of the ID. So we pass that ID parameter into our route. Right? So in VueJs, how can add the parameter? In this video, I will show you that things with a live example. For doing this, better if you go to our project directory. So right now we don't need this. Okay, I just remove it. There is a home, there is a neighbor. I just remove it. So now first of all, I want to create one of the component. Like here in our component area, I create new file and I just name it as a profile. Okay, I just name it as a profile.view. So this profile.view, right now I just copy all the things from our home. I just copy all from our home, and now in our profile I just simply paste it. Sorry, go to that home. I just select all and I just copy it, and now in our profile I just simply paste it. Okay, so now we don't need this, and here I just name it as a profile page. Okay, I just name it as a profile page and it should be as a profile. Okay, I just simply define that name as a profile, and also there is a class I define as a profile. Okay, I just name it as a profile. And also if you want to add some of the CSS, you can also add the CSS. Like there is a h2. So in our style here I define one of the h2 class, and for the h2 class here I want to define one of the style. Like here for this one I define another color. Okay, I define the color as a green. So I just simply define color as a green. Okay, that means this will be actually display with the green color. And for the profile component, I want to create another route for this one. So go to our route, into the route area. I want to take another one, but I just copy it, and here the comma, I just simply define our another route. So this route will be as a profile. So I just simply define as a profile. Okay, I think you already know about it. So there is a name. I just simply define that name as a profile. I just simply define that profile, and then our component will be profile. Okay, I just simply define our component name also as a profile. So now here, first of all, I want to add one of the parameter in our this route. Okay, in our as a Laravel, as I told you, when you click on the edit page, so it's edit by with a specific one of the ID data, right? So now here I want to do that work. So that is our route. Into the route area, I want to define another parameter. So whatever the things you want define, like here I define as a user. Okay, I just simply define as a user one of the ID. So I just simply define as a user ID. So this user ID is the parameter I just define in our route area. That means that is our profile route. And also here I define our component as a profile, so we also have to include it. That means here we have to import it. So better I just copy it. So I just simply paste it. So that is our component I just define as a profile. So that is our import, that our profile component, and our page I have defined. That means our component I have defined in our component folder, and there is a profile, right? So I just simply name that our component as a profile. So I just simply name it as a profile. Perfect. So I think you already know about it. So here I import our profile. So now if you want to access that page, that is our profile, and also after that they have some of the ID. So now I just copy that profile, click on the save all. Now go to our site, and here you can see that is our all the page. That means all that component, and also I have defined another route as a profile. So now if you click on the enter, now you can see it's now become total blank. But here we define one of the ID, right? I define one of the ID as a user ID. So for now, after that profile route, I want to define one of the ID like as a 5. And now if you click on the enter, yes, now you can see now our this profile page is loaded. So friend, for the all that profile, that is actually unique, right? So if you want to find out that some of the profile as a Kazi profile, then it should be displayed as a Kazi profile. Okay, and also if you want to display some of the numbers, so then also that should be a specific one of the ID profile, it should be visible. And also here, if you want to show this ID, that means if you want to find out a specific some of the ID data, and also if you want to find out which actually that ID number, if you want to find out that part, then you can also do that work. Okay, if you want to do this work, then you have to do, if you go to our profile, so here I define our that is our route, and with this ID. So now if you go to that our profile, into the profile, that is our elements. Okay, into the here I want to do into the return area. First of all, I define one of the property. I name it as a user ID. Okay, I just simply define one of the property as a user ID, and then I want to define, I am into this instant, and if you want to access that instant data, then what exactly you have to do? You have to define that things with this, right? So with this, I want to get our which data, I want to get our this route, right? So in particular that position, I have already defined that route, so that is our route. So here I want to get this route. So for the reasons here, we have to define that our route name. So I just simply define that our dollar and the route. So I just simply define the dollar route, and then I have to also define that param. Okay, params, I have already discussed about that things with you. And now into the params, I want to define our which data. That means here I want to define our parameters. So our parameter name is the user ID, right? So now I want to display our this user ID. And now here you can see I just simply define that user ID. That means I just simply want to take one of the property as a user ID, and now I am already into this instance, and for the reasons here we have to define that this, and now I want to access our route, and into the route I just simply define that things with the params, and then our parameter. So here I define our parameter as a user ID, because here in our route area I just define that name as a user ID. So if you put that things as an ID, then you have to define also in particular that area as an ID. So I just take all that our ID data that from our route, and I just take the things with our this property. So now if you want to display this property, what exactly we have to do? So friend, I think you already know about it. So here I want to display it. Okay, so here I want to display our this property, like I define in bracket. So here I want to display our this property as a user, that means this one as a user ID. Okay, so here I just simply define our this property, so I just simply display it. Now if you want to display that data, like here if you click on the save all and now go to our site, yes, now you can see it's now perfectly visible our this data. Okay, so here if you click go to the profile, and then if you define as a 14, yeah, you can see it's now showing as a 14 and a specific our this data. That means that this parameter data is now visible. So I hope you can well understand about it. Whatever the things you put on particular that area, that is the ID. Now you can see it's now showing our this one as a 200. Perfect. So friend, I think it's very much clear to you if you want to pass some of the parameter in your route area. So that's how you can do that work. In our next video, I want to discuss about the router object. So how can working with the router object. In our next video, I will show you that things with a live example. So thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.